The coffee continues, my friends. Welcome back as we celebrate another Friday in this universe that we all inhabit. Sparkling neurons cross my brain as I speak to you now. They are sparkling. There's the spark. We got the spark. Another wonderful day, another wonderful batch of art. I can't wait to show you this first one. I mean, we just started with so. Welcome back. Artist Journal, April 5th, 2024. Broadcasting from Friday. Broadcasting from deep in Friday, on Friday morning here in deep in spring, which is kind of why I wanted to start with this work here. It is haircut day. So apologies in advance if I rush through this show excitedly. Again, a new format to a certain degree, which maybe hasn't really changed that much in the show, hilariously to me. And ironically, as I like to point out here. So all to say, welcome back and thank you for the huge support on X as well as Farcaster. Thank you for all the crypto there that was being sent my way. We'll get to that in a second. So let's start with this, which just captures the mood. It captures the vibe of our situation in the Northern Hemisphere, at least. People in Latin America, it seems like they always have good weather, from what I can tell. Look at this. How glorious is this work? The joy. It is spring. It is the blossoming of our world here. So let me see. I just had this on repeat. I almost wish that little MP4 player loop was a little more solid where it would just loop. The energy, the glory of new life. You know, as I think of Depeche Mode there, as I say those words, look at this. You know, as we scroll through this, it's easy to forget. A lot of us, are familiar with Zozo. And so, at first it was like, what is this incredibly bizarre artist up to here? This incredibly, and apologies in advance, but, from the outside, this can seem like kind of a little unusual, eccentric. But as, we get more familiar, as, magical repetition occurs, and repetition is probably one of the most powerful, just elements. It's just raw, power is repetition, it's why propaganda works and all this sort of thing. But it's also why, some music over time, it's how pop music, you could argue, works. That's what I'm trying to say here. Pop music, for example, it's not necessarily a good song, oftentimes, that we hear in the top 10, or at least, everybody can have their own opinion. But, we've all heard terrible songs that are in the top 10 in our lives at some point, right? And sometimes you feel, and I think it's to a lesser degree now, but say in maybe the 2000s, even the 90s, when corporations had more control, I think they could just push a hit out just by sheer repetition alone, because over time, you start to hear it so many times, and then you're just kind of, as long as there's some kind of rhythm, you're kind of like singing the tune, so to speak, or it starts to just get into the collective consciousness, and it became a thing. I think of Barbie World, actually, was that Aqua? Maybe that had a bit of a hook in it. Anyway. Let us continue here. So all to say, what I'm trying to say here with Zozo, who is the artist here, and if you've never heard, is your first time seeing, it is spelled XU0XO, so I think I'm pronouncing that properly. Haiku is the name of the work. How perfect. Rainy day, flowers bloom, and it feels like the first two lines of a haiku. I think they're usually 3 lines. My friend was making haikus for a little while. He was quite brilliant at them. I wish he kept up with them. All to say, they were like satirical haikus. All to say, this is a gorgeous visual haiku, isn't it? An ode to spring, La Primavera, if I'm not mistaken. I am learning Italian. And one more thing, I guess this is being animated. I was going to say, look at how awesome this is, this line being here. Let's just see if that line moves. Like the animation, I mean, again, it's easy to forget how totally radical this artwork is. We have become, as I was kind of making the point before we, run along here, I was kind of making the point that we've become familiar with this if we've been paying attention to Zozo's work. If you watch this show, I've started at least, I think, twice with Zozo now, maybe 3 times with this show here today. And all to say, over time it starts to get normalized. I guess repetition and familiarity starts to normalize it, which sometimes one could argue I think Heidegger, who I'm not a real huge fan of, I just never understood much of what Heidegger was trying to say. I felt Heidegger could have been clearer, but he did have a few great quotes and thoughts which make you think twice and say, oh, maybe there's something going on there. And the history was a little understated on what happened, but all to say, great things begin great. That was an interesting quote by Heidegger. And the other one, which I think that was an introduction to metaphysics, which I actually tried to read, by the way. And there was the other one, we need distance. And I never read that, but I remember it was an old philosophy prof of mine. I think Michael Pella at University of Chicago, studied under a famous philosopher. I want to say it starts with a K, whose name escapes me. He said, kind of referring to Heidegger, we need distance. Distance, in a sense, in order to see things properly. And distance gives perspective. And kind of here is almost, that's what I think of when I kind of am, again, kind of engaging with this and thinking, we can't forget how radical this is. When we take a step back, when we take a little bit of distance, we shouldn't forget how radical this is. Would you ever, one question you could ask yourself is, would I ever make this in 1,000,000 years? And for me, I would say maybe in 1,000,001 years. It would probably take that long. And I don't even know, I don't think I would ever make it then. And I love it, right? And it's just a gorgeous, again, ode to spring by Zozo. Only 10. This seems like a smaller edition than normal. Let's take a very quick look, and then we'll keep running through this Friday episode here. Wow, 1 of 1 for 25. Let me just take a quick look here. My collector antennae are going live here. Interesting. Wow, a 1 of 1 by Zozo. Wow, I missed one, 6 months ago. My wallet's empty, unfortunately. But very, wow, primary sequence. Great to see 1 of 1s coming from Zozo, too. It's good to kind of change things up, isn't it? So, yeah, and we saw Distant Summer, I don't know if that was Distant Summer Days. There's always that vibe, that emotion that Zozo is able to capture here, and we saw it yesterday, or the day before, in this work here, Doi Fei. So just a super fun artist. So let's continue here. Finally, maybe I've been on the front page object before with my art, but I'm not sure if I ever have. It's the first time I've ever seen it. And so big thank you to Object and to Gift Gallery, who really made this happen. This is part of the Paul Klee homage series, and there you can actually see some of the works. And yeah, so how cool is that? And there I am. So just kind of excited about that. So thank you to everybody involved. And again, it's easy to forget. I think it was Kulturmuseum Bern in Switzerland. It's a real thing. So very cool what Gift Gallery put together there. Very impressive. Institutional. I can now put a museum on my CV, which is actually kind of a big deal. So Gift Gallery doing great things. So thank you there, and also to Object. And thank you to UC, Unknown Collector, for the awesome just download on what is happening. It was great to bring, it's almost because Unknown Collector is pretty involved in this scene, as we all know, who pay attention to it. And so it's just great to get just kind of a current events, what's going on, how you enjoying, what I was calling Warpcaster, but it's Warpcast on Farcaster. I was calling it Warpcaster on Farcast. Hilariously, someone left a comment on that. You got it a little backwards. Who was that? Was that Kells? Anyways, thank you. It was a very fun show. It is in the feed. I think it's pinned. And so, anyway, thank you everybody for showing up. It was a great conversation, whirlwind conversation there. And thank you to Runetoon as well, and everybody who showed up. Coming up next, Space. I haven't made the post yet, but John Cates is going to be on. So I'm really looking forward to that. And that is going to be next Wednesday. And of course, John Cates, the glitch artist out of Taipei. Right? So, and has been doing glitch for a very long time, kind of OG in that scene. So, and of course, glitch has become, I would argue, in this Web3 scene, just stopping the flashing there for those that are bothered by it. Glitch is kind of like become a real, pillar in this, digital art scene. And John Cates, a pioneer. So, in this whole area. So, we're going to learn more about that history, too. Next episode. He also has a work on base on Manifold XYZ, and a couple of sales have already happened at 0.007, and there it is, the Glitch Cowboy. And did I bring it up? Here it is. So John Cates, who wrote that wonderful profile yesterday on his Patreon and everything, is going to be on the show again next week. I will post the Twitter space, the X space reminder this weekend. So looking forward to that. Also, just getting into comments here. Thank you, everybody, for the response. That was a fun show. I was watching just a little bit of it before I went to sleep. I was just curious. Sometimes I get curious because I upload these things half the time thinking, okay, that's it. It's been a fun ride, but nobody's going to like that one. And it was interesting to watch yourself once in a while. It's hard to do, but it's a kind of an interesting thing. And it's kind of important also, for public speaking. Brian Tracy has these great audiobooks on public speaking, which I highly recommend. A lot of little hacks in there, because public speaking, of course, is a very important thing to know how to do, especially if you're an artist and because you have to present yourself and you have to present information. Ideally, you're asked to speak somewhere and then you have to give a presentation. And so many people, this is a very important point, by the way. I don't want to go on too many tangents here. But public speaking, like so many people get the opportunity, like I've seen it a million times here in Berlin, they get the opportunity, they have a great crowd, and you can tell they don't know how to, they've either don't have any experience public speaking, or they haven't practiced, or they put out like a very kind of quiet monotone thing that nobody understands what they're saying. It's incredibly important because it's a huge opportunity. Public speaking is a huge opportunity to kind of whip people up and get them excited, and then they leave your little presentation at the art gallery going, I love that artist, and you're talking about it with your friends. I want to, do they have work? So public speaking is one of the greatest opportunities you can have as an artist as far as, giving a presentation somewhere, and it's something to not be... it's something to kind of practice at and get good at. And it's just, put it this way, it's just a massive opportunity. Why was I talking about public speaking? Anyways, let's continue here. District 468, a longtime viewer of the program, humbled to see decadence in room 6. Remember the flamingo work in the hotel room in the AI section being mentioned on the show. The collection was intended as a gentle satire, highlighting how people spend more time on capturing the perfect holiday snapshot rather than simply enjoying the present moment. Kind of beautiful, actually. Very subtle theme, isn't it? And as the journey unfolded, the flamingo took on a life of its own, leading us down unexpected paths. So kind of embracing the irrational here and just going, I like what the flamingo's doing, so I'm going to follow that. Very cool. It's great to, again, hear someone, overwriting at least, presenting their stuff, and you go, oh, that was cool. I was showing it, I thought it was a cool image. Now I'm going, oh, that's pretty sophisticated. That's really interesting. So communication, art and communication, right? I've been watching the show since January 2023, and District, I remember very clearly. District was a very early viewer. I started in mid-August 2022. So those are early days, and I like it because I can see how much fun you have in putting the show together. Very grateful. It comes down to, we're talking about entertainment and art as to quote Ballard, referring. I'm not sure, just to use his words. It's kind of a sophisticated entertainment. in large respects, as how I see art. I don't want to overemphasize the entertainment side, but it's kind of like sophisticated entertainment. And so I'm seeing the enthusiasm putting the show together. Very grateful that you bring us together with such consistency. I actually lost my train of thought here, and I'm not going to restart because otherwise I won't make my haircut here. But it's indeed a lot of fun to put together here, and very, you know what I love about it? I do love the limitations, and I do love how I am forced, in a sense, I'm forced to become a better public speaker, right? Otherwise, if you become a terrible public speaker, it's hard to keep an audience, right? So there's that. So if I do end up in front of a bunch of people in real life, one would expect I would probably be better at it. And there are hacks. Again, go to Brian Tracy audiobooks. I will find them if anybody's interested. Maybe I'll post that in the community. Maybe I'll do that right now. Very grateful that you bring us the journal with such consistency. With the time difference, I always watch a show on my terrace in the morning, which is awesome. Needless to say, I almost spilled my coffee today when I saw my flamingo pop up. And this just makes me so darn happy. Thank you, Adrian, for the inclusion, not only in the journal, but in the wider community. So what a wonderful comment from District 468. So go follow them on Object and Twitter. Beautiful comment, and awesome to hear from you, and I remember. Rada Yonki, the great Rada, GM all, and a big hug to you, Adrian. Thank you so much. And we have a beautiful work by Rada. Again, we have the work in progress of that beautiful pirate ship that Rada was working on. Just a gorgeous work. The OG pixel artist. Again, the person I don't know if that's the first work I had to collect on Object. Was I saw there was a Rada that was affordable in 2021 because none of the Radas were affordable on Ethereum. But I did see one on Tezos, and I was like, I have to buy that. I have to buy some Tezos. Awesome to hear. I think this is Zoo. Watch every issue of the Artist Journal. I appreciate that. This newspaper of the imagination here. Louis Gamma, Oregon trip. So, referring to Rinny Fish's magical psychedelic work, this is hilarious and perhaps important. I can confirm the psychedelic reference. That is hilarious. Being on a similar place on a high dose of psilocybin, and this piece hit me on a visceral level. Very nice shapes. Great show as usual, Adrian. Terence McKenna. This made me think of Terence McKenna, who was basically saying, it's early days in this exploration of inner space. He called it hyperspace, right? Which is interesting. So early, and what he was saying is, again, we're not in the land of science here in terms of we're not in the land of number or of quantities. We can't measure what someone is maybe seeing in some psychedelic trip when they close their eyes, right? As maybe what Louis Gamma might have saw on that high dose of psilocybin. So what are we left with? We need accounts, right? That's what Terence McKenna was saying. Accounts, because then all of a sudden, who knows where Rinny Fish got her inspiration? Maybe I see that and I go, oh, that's got a bit of alien spaceship vibes, especially those pastels. And then Louis Gamma chimes in and says, well, in fact, I think you're onto something with those, the psychedelic thing, Pocobelli. So all to say, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? And quick thing on that, just finally, McKenna always talked about these, what do they call them? The transforming machine elves from hyperspace, right? When he would do his DMT there. Now, what's interesting is there's a lot of skepticism, and just in terms of accounts, is that notion of the self-transforming machine elf, as he called it. There's a lot of skepticism towards people who are sort of like, I don't see that. So it's just kind of interesting. Again, the value of accounts. Right, and it was and I would argue McKenna did see it in the sense that I don't think that language would have been it would have been theoretically possible, but I don't think it would have been practically possible for McKenna to put those words together, other than through seeing something that kind of approached that, and that just became the best description McKenna could kind of English, as he would put it, onto that whatever that visual was. Anyways, huge tangents here on Haircut Day. Let's continue. Thank you, Luis Gamma, for the awesome message. Stuart Reed, GM. This is funny. GM Art Friends. I'm not sure what this is a reference to. Maybe because I said GM Stuart. I love when Pocobelli doesn't get the reference. Clearly, I don't. I was thinking maybe it's the painter Bob guy who was on PBS. Not sure. Ed Marola, thank you for another review, Pocobelli. Indeed, strange body formats. We were talking about Ed and the arm. And Ed had this very poetic kind of arm that was just kind of like curving, like, very unanatomical, but it was really nicely done and poetic and pleasant. And like, to me, that's something to learn from. Indeed, strange body formats bring some poetry to the poses. Exactly. I make them out of inability to draw proper anatomy. But sure, it works. And isn't that interesting? Like, in a sense, you could say, what I love about Ed Marola's style is it goes forward without having to know the rules of drawing, one could argue to a certain degree. And from that, with that kind of courage and audaciousness to a certain degree, Ed has made some of the most wonderful canvases, so to speak, we've seen on this show. Right? I just saw one from December. I can't remember. He posted it in his feed recently. Just an incredible work, a beautiful composition. So not letting anatomy stop Ed from making beautiful poetry, visual poetry. So thank you for that. Kels, thank you once again for the comment. Glad you like this show. Skull Takes, this is a really great comment too. Thank you so much for showing my new work. And thank you for giving us reminders about ordinals and the halving. So the latest I've heard is April 17th. That is 12 days. I was hoping April 20th. Now it's April 17th. I guess it moves. I'm not exactly sure how it works. It's inspired me to inscribe some pixel art on Bitcoin as part of my Ecstatic Joy series. So I'm thrilled to hear that, Skull Takes. And yeah, I am working furiously to try and finish two projects. So I'm excited about that, actually. So, and it's really wonderful, again, to be able to make works that are like 2 or 4 kilobytes, and then for you actually to get pleasure from them feels very powerful. Because if you can do that, let's see if anybody else, feels that I've pulled that off in a couple of weeks or whenever this is published. But if you can do that, you can put, how cool would that be to put beautiful art in a 2 kilobyte file, which you can put on Bitcoin, and to a certain degree from a market perspective, how collectible does that become? So all to say, it's kind of worth our while for those that are into that Bitcoin, putting art on Bitcoin. It's kind of worth our while to really try and figure out how to do that, I would say. And there are beautiful just kind of hacks on how to do that. Anyway, cool works here, by the way, too. Very interesting takes on skulls. I think they're skulls. Ecstatic Joy. So almost like a Bernini, Saint Teresa being kind of pierced there, so to speak, by that famous Bernini sculpture. I can't remember. Let's continue. Rural Idol, another great show, Adrian. Thank you. Thanks for the birthday shout out, which is awesome. I should have saved you an edition. Love these DJ Pierre Acid Tracks deep dives too. Indeed. I listened to DJ Pierre while I was working on my Dante pixel art and his series there yesterday. I was like, because, it's an interesting thing. And again, I need to kind of run through this episode here. But you know how I like to start? Because let's say you want to learn about Acid House. Let's say you like Acid House. Let's say you're familiar even with a lot of works. How do you start? And it's a fun way to start is to start at the beginning. So I was like, here's a rock I can latch onto if I want to do a deeper dive and get to know all of the works, let's say, or to really get to know the history of that. Because I found it revealing, that story that I heard on Instagram Reels at DJ Pierre and all that story that I recounted, I think, twice. So all to say, if I want to learn that history a little more, and maybe there's a lot of analogs here with what we're up to in this digital art space, again, with the retro software, where do you start? And I thought, you know what? On YouTube now, YouTube Music, probably Spotify is similar, although I think YouTube Music has a little bit more because from people recording vinyl, right? They're vinyls. So I can just go, okay, let's listen to that vinyl, that whole thing, right? And then I can know it. And then I go, okay, now I'm familiar with that. What came out after that? And then I can start to kind of build a kind of momentum. Otherwise, it feels like you're just grabbing, stuff from all over the place, and that you're not sure if it's adding up to anything. So I'll just say I'm glad you enjoyed the conversation on Future. I hope to return to it. Braindead, thanks for your sympathies, Adrian. Getting better and better every day, and I'm really thrilled to hear that, Braindead. That is just one of the most heart-wrenching stories that I've heard this year. So I'm glad to hear you're getting better. Eternity, high five to freedom. Absolutely. That was a fun one. Indeed. That was a fun title. Art is freedom. And yeah, that was one of those 3 o'clock in the morning wake-ups. Yes, indeed. With that in your head. And Rennie Fish, indeed. So beautiful. And just a quick thank you to everybody on Farcaster who recast, quote, 58, nice, and sending, crypto. So, and pretty significant. I mean, it came in, Uxine sent, thank you, Uxine, for the huge, that's like $50, as far as, at least in current degen, I think. There's Ed Marola. So thank you for the support here. This is wild. So clearly I have to spend more. Now I'm starting to get it as the degen coin here, crypto, rolls in. So all to say, thank you for the support on Farcaster. Try and spend a little more time there. I've loaded it up here, as you can see on the show. And thank you, everybody, for the posts in the community, discovering new work all the time. This is actually in the show. So here's Ugo DG. And here's also August Ground is also in the show. And here's Human Boy, another cool work. I think there's AI, if I'm not mistaken, in that. And Filippo Francocci, also in the AI section. So discovering a ton of work here. Alex Dronov and more. Here's Natcat. And I guess there's an Enjoy coin on Zora, if I'm not mistaken. Not exactly sure. I've decided philosophically that crypto... it's almost better, how people say it's almost better in the bear market because it's not as crazy. I'm starting to go, now that we're kind of in a bull market, it seems, with Bitcoin kind of at or just below the record there again. I've decided to just kind of, I'm focusing on the art. And all this other stuff, yeah, maybe you become a millionaire by getting some airdrop and whatever, but I'm just focusing on the art, and sure, maybe good business can be had in the meantime. But all to say, look at this wild work here. This is Genesis. So very cool work here. So all to say, that is kind of how I am approaching this. Ugo DG, yeah, and we will see these in the work. And here's Macro Mitai posting a work from another artist here. So Sketch LY871R, Le Legio, and more. So Leprochant. And there was one thing, so really awesome to see everybody post here. This is hilarious. This is also what I wanted to highlight here. Santiago, hello friends. I made a channel on Warpcast to celebrate the work of Hasdrubal Waffle. So I actually brought that up here. So that is pretty cool. There is a Hasdrubal Waffle fan page or art page and more. And here's an ancient rural idol going. I've been mainlining the first 100 journals. This is wild to me, because I've looked, 4 or 5 months ago, I looked at the early episode and I was like, whoa, I can't watch this. It's hilarious. Nice to recap community moments that have already seemed like decades ago. It does. And wow, you did these daily for so long. Yeah, 80 days in a row. That's how I really built this show, was actually just doing it every day. Interestingly, here's a lovely non-canon photojournal from February 21st. So yeah, oh man. Let's move on. I just wanted to highlight this. This is the main reason to do exercise, other than health and everything. It strengthens your brain. This is kind of like an unsung story, and I've mentioned this many times. New York Times has an article here, how exercise strengthens your brain. They have the science here, so pretty interesting. So, yeah. Now, speaking of airdrops and art, so we've been seeing this on the exchange.art page. You'll see there's a little, I think, a when part of the menu and airdrop or something like this. It's coming. When airdrop art is coming. Ooh, that sounds like a valuable one. It's on Solana, could do well. It's been a while since the infamous purple diamond appeared on the homepage, sparking speculation and controversy. When token, late Q2. When snapshot, in May. Who, artists and collectors? Why? It's time you deserve it. So a great time to be minting and selling and buying work on exchange.art. I haven't worked, it's 95% ready. that's been sitting on my desktop for about a month here. View the latest announcements here. So something to look forward to, and again, get rewarded for making your art and just participating. That's a fun way to do it. Naim, so very cool pixel artist, I believe out of Iran, if I'm not mistaken. In the past month, I was less active here because I was working on my new website. How are we doing for time? Now more personalized than the previous one. I'd appreciate if you take the time to check it out. And I just wanted to show this, so I clicked it. It's quite beautiful. And it's something, someone was mentioning to me, a photographer friend, last night, like, should I have a website? And I think pretty clearly you need a website. It's just one of those things that if a curator is checking out your page and you only have Instagram and you only have, maybe Foundation or something else and Twitter, a website is a website, and it just kind of has this sense of, it conveys a seriousness, and it's kind of a pain. But let's look here. I mean, what a beautiful opener there, and here, all the series. It's also a way, this is kind of what I want to do to a certain degree. It's a way of organizing your work, because you put out all this work, and it can just seem like there's no order to it. Not everybody keeps some super detailed database, although it's a good idea if you're a professional artist to actually keep a database of who owns what and where it's sold. At least with the blockchain, that kind of takes care of itself. But if you're selling physical work, you should know where that's gone. As far as provenance and all this sort of thing. Certificate of authenticities, how to make artist proofs, how to make editions, what's an artist proof, how do you sign it, should there be a stamp, all this stuff. So all of this stuff helps create the aura of seriousness and it's basically just being an art professional. So if you take it seriously and that's what you want to be, you might as well do stuff like this. You probably need a website, right? So this is a cool one, and I just love, and it's actually pretty amazing. I opened one of these pages, and you don't see it in this one, but you see the full description here. And then in one of these, I saw there's the work in progress shots were underneath. Right? So you can see how it was built. And so it becomes a true kind of record. You might as well, of your art, a public record. Here's my art. Here's how it was made and everything. So if you've never seen Naimi Pakniet's work, really original and cool, pixel artist. By the way, if you want to loop that, then you just hit that. You just got to click the loop, and there it is. So super cool, pixel artist. Let's continue. Element Lee. Very interesting. I don't think we looked at this last time. The edges of my recent drawing are liberalized and left blank, allowing them to echo and connect with each other. Each drawing is both independent and being a part of space-time, logic, and feeling. How interesting. So it seems to me, if I'm not mistaken, the edges of my recent drawings are liberalized and left blank, allowing them to echo and connect with each other. So you see here, the background color, this kind of light gray, let's call it, beige gray, is being shared by all these works. And what Element Lee is doing is just basically juxtaposing what looks like three different works, but letting them share the background and not putting a border on it. So in a sense, it becomes one work, is what Element Lee is saying, which is pretty interesting. Look at these great colors here, too. So more interesting stuff, and we'll see this work actually a little later in the show. Braindead.gif, artist Michael Micasso. So this, it looks like Braindead is going to be doing, here it is. I'm working on this project with everything I have. My ultimate goal is to make one of the most successful PFP projects on the Tezos blockchain. And now get ready for others artist collabs. Our first guest, Mech.txt, also known as Michael Micasso. Auction will be live in a few hours. So pretty cool. So Braindead working on a PFP collection. How cool is that? And this is not an April Fool's joke. Here's the time lapse I was telling you about. Rada, progress time lapse. So we can see here. So again, if Rada had a website, and I assume Rada does, you could have the main work, the write-up, and then underneath you could put stuff like this, like accompanying information. Because again, let's say you're a curator at one of these major museums. Let's say they start to buy our narrative and start going, you know what? We kind of like what's going on over here. And we're seeing it over and over, and we're starting to think that something's going on here. We want to have a show, and they may not know. If you have a website and you have your main work, and then you have stuff like this underneath, they go, oh, we could have that in the show. Right? But otherwise they'll just never know about it. And then, okay, then we'll just have your main work and whatever. So it's worth kind of making stuff findable. Make it easy for curators, I guess is the moral of the story. So all to say, very cool time lapse here from the great Rada, the great pixel artist Rada. So just a ton of fun moving things around here. Very cool. And there's all the rats. And here's John Cates again. The Glitch Western Wednesday, my base Genesis is on Manifold. So here it is from my premiere performance at the Digital Arts Center in Taipei, Taiwan. So it looks pretty darn fabulous. And this is an important, actually, example, I would say, of how digital art on a projector, when it's made huge, is a different beast. Like, it's a very powerful beast. Like, I remember looking at when I was working on my Peloponnesian War series, I have a projector and I'd put it on the wall when it was like, because these things are like little almost trading cards in a sense on your phone. When you make it big, again, I call it it's like a alchemical transformation. And that little kind of file on your phone or on your desktop computer, when you make it big like this, it is a different experience. And this is just another example of that. So looking fabulous there. And we saw this work last time, but now we see it more physically from Chrome Void. So grateful for all the love on the paintings and the bids. Thanks so much, y'all. And I've been talking way too much here, but we have a hard deadline with the haircut. So I'm going to have to run here, but Fake Rat Pepe auction ends at 5 p.m. Look at how fabulous it looks on the canvas. And here's Walk looking like a professional coming soon, and we're just discussing this, right? And Walk, one of the things you can do is have a stamp, right? And Walk is like a total pro, working in deep and pure market forces, working on eBay, putting stuff up for 1 Tezos or €1. You see here, it's worth doing your research on how to make editions and how to make them cool and good. You see with Walk here, doesn't need to sign anything now. And it looks pretty darn cool, and you know it's an official Walk because Walk's probably the only person, probably got this custom-made stamp. It's a good idea. Looks great. Now look at this. Please rate this bad art magazine. This is Santiago. And when I looked at this, I was like, God, this looks like something you'd see in a bookstore in the magazine section. I think it's called New American Painting. This looks like New American Painting. And it looks like really good New American Painting, I would argue. So here's the work. Now, kind of starts a little slow, interesting kind of work, right? Some letters, nice numbers. So this is like an AI work. Now, as you see here, okay, looks all right, right? Kind of cool. But then it really picks up here in a second. Look at this out of focus. But then the painting part, I mean, I thought was unbelievable. Like here you go, even the letters here. Look at this great painting. This looks like it could actually be out of like New American Painting if I remember the publication correctly. It's almost worth bringing up the website. I don't have time, but let's bring it up really quickly. If I remember the name of the New American Paintings, maybe that's subscribe. I think this is it, right? Current issue. You probably can't look at it, unfortunately. Too bad. We could do the comparison. So all to say, like you look at the cover here and then you go back here and it's like, well, this could be on the cover. This is a really nice one. Look at this one. This beautiful combination of mediums here. Look at this one. Like I would almost be tempted, like if you really want to prank, maybe Santiago kind of might be all over this idea. I think almost these should be sent to New American Painting. Some of these like really nice painterly ones, they might go, this is amazing. This is because it looks, again, like now that we're deep in it, look at this great painting. It looks exactly like it's out of like one of these, magazines. So pretty impressive. So all to say, just looking great over there. Continuing into the work, look at this radical work by Cider. I missed this the other day. This came out late March. How on earth did I miss this? You know why? Because it's on Super Rare, and I need to get better at following people on Foundation, where you can get all the notifications in one place for everything that's happening on ETH. So that's what I need to do. But look at how amazing this hot dog is, and it's got all of this. I wish we could see it bigger here. We really don't have time, but usually you can click on, is it Arweave? Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so this is what I almost want to highlight here. This stuff here, this noise. And again, as far as I remember, Cider going from physical to digital and back. And you see here just a little taste of what Cider is up to. So I should basically, I need to move on this show, but very cool piece from Cider, hot dog. Love it. Accepted an offer of 0.6, sold for $2,000, $1,900. Nice sale. Here's another one. I think we saw this on this auction ends. So Cider is killing it. Half an ETH, $1,600. I think we saw this on X maybe a couple of weeks ago. Not exactly sure. 360 no scope. Just another beautiful work here from Cider. Nov 1914 de Estrellas. So a couple of works here. This is an edition of 2, more just radical artwork. We've seen nothing but radical artwork here. Whether it's the opener with Zozo, radical, whether it's Cider, even our pixel artists there out of Iran, that's pretty radical work just with the website. And here again, this is wild. Wild work, keeping it fresh. Espada. And here, this kind of looks like a princess with a magic wand. Maybe it's a flower. Maybe just a girl with a flower. Not sure. Someone in a dress with a flower. Espada. Edition of 1. 12 Tezos. Beautiful. Here's Mumble Boy. What city? So another awesome collage here. You gotta love the process with Mumble Boy. Very consistent process. Great results. And just more exploration and pretty interesting with the gradients in the background too. Quite a nice canvas, as I am increasingly saying out here. Here's Santiago again, who made that wonderful book. Last thing I had wrapped to tell you in my book, Covered in Dust, as Mountain Valleys and Dust Sculpture. Okay, we got to run, but here is the work. Love the negative space. Look at this negative space. Look at how huge this file is. Another massive file. How are we doing? Let's continue here. Beautiful. That's 28 Tezos edition of 5, and 1 sold to NFT Spritz. Big shout out to NFT Spritz. And Clint Fulkerson, here is just a cool GIF that got posted. So nice piece here. Thought that was original, kind of abstract GIF. Here is Bizaya, Capitalismo Coquette by me. And here you have this is a quite brilliant portrayal of like a lion, leopard, cheetah, all in one thing. And then with the Louis Vuitton in the kind of front here. Is that the main? Maybe the main's up here. All to say, interesting commentary, cool work from Bizaya. Here is Uxine Coexistence. This is edition of 13, now on secondary for 468. Look how beautifully painted this is. And kind of a cool kind of meta work. And there's the Choose Freedom on the camera. You got the kind of, what you might call the dark humor, the satire here. And here, just the person with the mouse is the brain here. Everything flying. What's coexistence? And here's almost like an eye at the top, interestingly. So cool piece from Uxine, selling for a whole bunch of Uxine token, I believe. 700 billion Uxine token, I think. So cool work there. Continuing on, Edmarola with a stunner. This fits your 16 by 9 monitor perfectly, by the way. So check this out. And, I mean, quite a wild, more radical artwork. I mean, at the end of the day. Like, this is really, again, it's kind of going somewhere. And you see, like, this dream script just kind of cycling across this work. What a piece. What a piece. It's like 6 pieces put together. The structure. Really, really cool. 10 Tezos, edition of 21, 2 gone. Here's the rest of this series. This has been an incredibly interesting series. There's still a 1 of 1 available for 88 Tezos, by the way. And we've been following this basically, I think it's from around January when we started seeing this, if I'm not mistaken. And already 675 Tezos of volume. I mean, not bad at all. Here's Kareem Safa. And here is, what is this called? I think encryption. So again, the pioneer of this, pixel art factory style, working in black and white here. And a very elaborate piece on super rare, as you can see. And you gotta love these cubes over here. Just beautiful, incredible, really. There's an offer of 0.1, and the auction was one for 0.75. So again, nice sale. That's over $2,000, $2,400 sale. You gotta love it. Encryption facility. I love it. And this was just minted April 2nd, sold right away. So the market, people are saying how, the market even on ETH is going. We see it with Cider too. It's just super selective, right? And I think, it's just the nature of things. It just forces everybody to up their game. It's a tough competition, but sales are being made. Here's a new one by Kristen Roos, Atari 1982, created with Paint for Atari 400, 800, released in 1982 by Superboots Software. So we're getting a real education here in some of these vintage softwares. This one's pretty awesome. It's almost outrageous they would put out a program this simple. But again, this is 1982. This is really just early computer art programs. What a cool series. This is an already foregone. Nice work at 10 Tezos. Here's the work by Ugo Digi. This is an edition of 1, and this was one for only 15 Tezos. Nice work by by Braindead, who picked this up. So a new series from Ugo. We're going to run through it here. We got AF number 2, inspired by vintage software and early gaming design. This is using Graphics 2, which is a popular one. We've seen it, a few artists use it. So here's another one, probably an emulator, right? So just some cool vintage software at work here. I wonder if Muji also, because it's kind of got a deluxe paint feel, but it's just a little different. Very cool. Renato Marini, this came out a few days ago, Broken Art Provider. Just a wild work. We saw it briefly, I think, but here it is on Tezos with this leaking monitor. Just a beautiful artwork. This is the full size and these old kind of 90s icons. Selling for $333, edition of 33. Look at this. How many are left? They're all sold out. Actually, what did they sell at originally? So that's secondary. Selling out at only a Tezos. Yeah, if you want to sell your work, sometimes it's better to make it cheaper and sell it than to make it expensive and not sell it. So interesting lesson there. Nice work. Now, and then you still get the secondary commissions, right? Here's François Gamma, who's been super prolific. And doing different things. François Gamma is kind of firing on all cylinders, is how it feels like right now. So just an interesting piece. Landhead kind of looks like, Easter Island type sculptures moving through a kind of landscape. This was a brilliant work by Silva Santus. How many have been minted so far? Only, have any been minted? Yes, this one has been minted, and 3 by Silva Santus. This is a beautiful work. I was tempted to start with this. This was for me, this was a head turner. I love the pyramids, and again, just a glitch, a very cool glitch. Keeping it original. Magic Pyramid number 2, 4 minted so far. Here's Green Ginger Interconnected Realms. So kind of still going on this almost magical, otherworldly pixel art mixing with the cities. Kind of almost has that Thor, what do they call it? That Norse mythology kind of rainbow bridge. And then you have almost like these, classical sculptures, and even like it almost looks like ancient Rome back here. We'll see some more ancient Rome later on this program. 250 edition of 20 on Object. Another interesting, going back to Art Presti, going back to these interesting abstracts, these pixel art abstracts, which I find super interesting and fun. Estrato number 8, this is for Tezos edition of 5. And let's keep zooming here. Straight on Fire, I thought this was funny. Gulchi Cooter, again, just someone's got their stash on fire in a Ziploc. So interesting, good thing I have a stash. Straight on Fire, edition of 99, 1 Tezos. Here is Anis Abdin. I don't know, 4 colors. Again, putting out work every day and no volume or no audio, as one would expect if you're putting out work every day. Cool work, though. I love this juxtaposition of the computer here with nature and the person in between. Almost a self-portrait, one imagines. And of course, nature being Anis Abdin's main subject. And here we see kind of a similar work with these containers, almost like these big shipping containers. Great subject. Again, in nature. These puddles of water and this great, wonderful juxtaposition there. Here is elementally substance. So again, kind of feels like astronomical, but not necessarily. Interesting work there. We are seeing a lot of astronomical works. Now, this we saw posted, I believe, on X like a couple of weeks ago from Gogolitis. It is now on Object, and I believe it's on there, but it hasn't been listed yet. So cool, very cool work. We saw the rest of the series, I think, on Solana, which is a good idea. Maybe it's a good idea to put like cheap editions on Solana so that you make a ton of sales, and maybe that helps you with your airdrop. Right? Maybe it's because remember Super Rare, for those that got the airdrop in Super Rare, I think it was based on how many works you sold and how many you collected. So the more, it was basically rewarding you for basically participating in the digital art ecosystem. So maybe if you have an edition and you sell, 100 editions, maybe that's great for a potential airdrop. I love the token name too, $art. That sounds promising. Composition 184, this is close. As we are not doing too bad, actually, for time. If we're already at close in the show, and we're at the 51-minute mark, we're actually doing pretty good. Beautiful work here, 1 of 1. This is sold for 21 Tezos, so amazingly, we are at composition 185 here. Also, this is for sale, not sold yet, by Klaus. Beautiful, beautiful textures and color. That beautiful gray, almost beige gray. Raster Corrosion, this is Dr. Version, with a pretty wild work, kind of playing with a lot more texture in this one, almost adding a layer. So cool gripping work. This is 3 Tezos, edition of 7, and just released on Object April 3rd. Raster Corrosion, cool title. Ranky, this is, I thought, a pretty interesting one. So as you see, just the way it kind of, the speed switches over, there's something almost very organic about this one, this animated abstract by Renki called Koza. Edition of 1, and classic Renki not listing. Pretty cool. Here's August Ground. In one hole and out another. I think we saw this in the community. Photography, post-photography, AI, Photoshop, other resource material. I'm going to have to speed up a bit. But anyway, very cool pixel art work here. Or sorry, not pixel art. Incorporating digital and mixing it, juxtaposing it, almost masking it within a larger artwork here. So a lot going on, exporting through a lot of different processes. AI, Photoshop, post-photography. Pretty interesting piece. Zhu Ziliang picking one up for 6 Tezos and edition of 15 from August Ground, who I still need to reach out to. Actually, I'm going to reach out to you probably this weekend, August. Schedule you in for the show if you are interested. Walk, here's a new one, Royal Haze, in the, I guess what I'm calling the cannabis series. Kind of a nice, this walk would actually, some of these works would hang nice with cider. You could almost do a double solo exhibition, as they sometimes call it. Humans of the Universe, put a bid on it, 3 Tezos. Cool work. John Still Lifes. So here, a cool, I think this is a GLB, exactly by John Carroll. So continuing the plant theme here. Putting out a few works, and then I think basically, so of course, John, who puts out the windows on Object, here is a GLB John has put out, and I think he turned each one of these little, the alarm clock's pretty rad, turned each one of these into a separate work. So this is an edition of 5 and transferred. Very cool. Here's Coda Nakazono, Continuum number 197. As we do have to run, I have to be out of here in 10 minutes. You know what I loved about this one? The JPEG icon. It's just little stuff like that sometimes, just keeping things interesting, keeping it unpredictable. These massive pixels in the background too. Very cool. From Coda Nakazono, Continuum number 197, and gone. And they're gone at 15 Tezos. Nice sales. Here is Simulacro, with, again, playing with this kind of masking a la, similar to similar to kind of facial recognition software or surveillance cameras, but now using it as an opportunity to kind of leave this area here a different texture, like a different kind of processing. And even playing with these squares here. So just interesting, isn't it? Cool audio too. I have to run, but check that out, Simulacro on Object. That is 7 Tezos and 3 gone. Here is Sabato with a piece and kind of a wild AI piece. Kind of seems satirical with the music. Make sure that's showing properly. Yeah, it is. So interesting, kind of, I almost want to call it a promo video for New York by Sabato. New Blob City version 1.0. So this is on Foundation on bass. This is part of Clown Vamps, I believe. Clown Vamps show exhibition, that group exhibition that Clown Vamp has curated, I believe. The Triumph of the Night by Filippo, I think Fancocci, if I remember right. This is on Zora, and using Topaz Gigapixel, so for upscaling, interestingly. And Krita, which I'm hearing more and more about. I've never tried it out, but Krita is I believe, an AI tool. So again, AI outputs combined with digital painting and drawing. 16 minted. Nice work. Here's Strange Thing. This looks like it's part of Clown Vamp Show 2, I want to say. But not totally positive. All to say, another cool kind of Renaissance-inspired painting here. Beautiful color. And you just have to love the textures on the side here. And beautiful, I can't remember what you call these things. That the philosophers wore. Continuing on, Skamra. It was kind of a wild, kind of photo-looking work. This is AI as well. Friends Roar last night, edition of 10 for 4 Tezos, 2 gone. And continuing on with No Hygiene, with another wild juxtaposition here of this almost CGI mixing with like a manga-type anime. With these massive veins. 4 minted. So pretty awesome work from No Hygiene. And here is Zhu Zeliang. The Story of Hands, number 7, Midjourney, Photoshop, Final Cut Pro. Let's take a quick look. So clearly a reference, I think, to the creation of Adam. And here we see different hands or different windows. And again, kind of a print sort of feel with the dots. And then almost like a loading thing, icon in the middle. So this is 125 Tezos, edition of 1, and that is on Object. Here's Machine, who actually just had an interview. I was reading some of the quotes. I think it's in here. Yeah, which is hilarious, by the way. Check out Machine's feed on Instagram. Quite an interesting backstory there. And has been putting out these pretty wild kind of Photoshop works, which I'd say, like, what I like about these Photoshop kind of collages is they're weirdly original, because I think a lot of us have seen like collage, but there's just a humor in them. I just find them original. And I think she's her on the beach and then just digital collaging herself repeatedly. So just interesting work there. Christian Hjellard D Gallery. I didn't even realize this was them. We look forward to exhibiting this new works by Ralph Koch at the Palm Beach. So at the probably the most expensive. So beautiful work here. Kind of has a music player, ancient theme here, which we've seen many times. Let's continue. Bobici Mattia. This is so, I want to say, outrageous in a good way. These Tyrannosaurus Rex heads just juxtaposed on top. There's something about this just freedom. We see it in Bendito Bondozo as well, who I show here a lot. Just pure, just doing whatever the heck you want, and it kind of working. Ancient Armor, 2024. It's Not Gallery with a few kind of airbrush works here. David Hernandez is the artist. That kind of looks like the happy guy from McDonald's. Liam Sear Budd. This is also It's Not Gallery. Again, more airbrush work, seemingly. Continuing on, another one from Norio Monma, who has these strange kind of paintings where they'll just put the little animal at the top in ink or something. A new one by Kayla Matus, I think, or at least a work from the Dallas Art Fair. The Weaver, How Am I Supposed to Live, Laugh, Love in These Conditions? So again, very memey and just rad artwork as usual. And we've seen many from Adam Lister. I thought this one was particularly of note because it had this movement but done with squares, which I thought was, even the ball done with a square. I thought interesting piece. Love the sports theme. And some brilliance by Walk. This looks like the Dalai Lama, doesn't it? I don't know, but I assume it's that. Free mint on, I think, Zora. It is on Zora. And here, another work, The Life of Pablo, which I thought was a David Bowie album, but it doesn't look like, maybe it's a book as well or something. Just more virtuosity from Walk. And this was super interesting. Painting versus painting. So here is Walk's version. It's like ancient Rome, let's say, or some kind of looks like the ancient city in Rome. But yeah, and there's the Colosseum. You can see it there. I think Walk is Italian, if I'm not mistaken, in Italy. This is Walk's version, which I think is hilarious, like, and quite good. And you see, like, again, kind of making that look easier than it is. Really brilliant work. And here is Ilya Barabin. Interesting work on Zora, cool illustration. I believe these are watercolors. Real watercolors is what Ilya said. 18 minutes so far. Interesting piece, too, with these people drinking coffee. Thank you for joining me. I'm off to my haircut. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. Hope you enjoyed the show. And until next time, take care.